welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. I'm Shai Lewis. I'm here with Nina Roesner. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connection so you can have a thriving marriage. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the 5 stages of adult development and how that shows up in your relationships. So we are just returning from an amazing time. We just had our Strength and Dignity conference, and I can't say enough about it. We had so many women that experienced change, that came together and just loved on each other and really heard from the Lord. And one of the cool things that we talked about was this thing called adult development. And it's a concept by Dr. Robert Keegan, and he's got some neat ideas around that. So I want to spend some time with you, Nina, today to discuss that. But before we do, I want to just direct our listeners to our website, greaterimpactwives.org, where they can download a free PDF called 5 Tools for How to Stop Walking on Eggshells. And then we'll give you some more details on other programs we have available. All right, so welcome, Nina. I'm excited to talk to you about this topic today.
Oh, me too. I was thinking we could title our podcast Immature Much or Dealing with Immaturity.
I like it.
Because it's kind of a thought like, why would I listen to adult development? It's like, well, because I'm dealing with immaturity, right? Like, no joke. Within myself and other people, like that's a thing. So this work by Robert Keegan I love it so much. It applies to executive coaching, which I do, but it also really, really, really applies to marriage and parenting and like literally every relationship in our lives. It's great stuff. So I'm glad you're open to visiting about it. I think you had the idea actually.
Yeah, I really got a lot out of that session. And so I just feel obligated to share a little bit of it, with our listeners, and maybe it'll help them out as well. So yeah, I was reading online that Dr. Keegan calls this constructive development theory, CDT, which he defines as the thought processes that we use as adults to construct our reality. It helps us to reach higher stages of cognitive development where we become objective around our emotions and our beliefs, and stuff that's in the subconscious kind of gets uprooted. So that in itself is a mouthful.
Yeah.
So I'm not a doctor, and I know you aren't one, and we don't play any on TV, but we know a little bit. We teach self-awareness here at Greater Impact, and it's part of the foundational healing, I would say, that we do here, and coaching that we do here. And so I feel like we know enough to at least sound like we know what we're doing.
Oh, you're hilarious. Yeah, one of the things I love about Deeper Walk International, and they partner with Dr. Jim Wilder. He's got several resources out there. Chris Corsi's part of this too, where they talk about adult development. And basically from child to elder is the way that they talk about this concept. But it's really important in relationships, because if we don't have 2 things, first, an awareness of ourself and what stage are we at in this, and then secondly, an awareness of where's my partner in this, then we have these really unhealthy expectations. Like, this is the place where the unhealthy expectations form, is when we're clueless about what's going on with ourselves or with somebody else. And so having an insight to who am I actually maturity wise, brutal. And then who am I dealing with maturity wise? And in areas of triggering and trauma, we're children, and so is our partner. Like, we're reacting like 2-year-olds. Fight, flight, freeze. Boom. There you go.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, when you're in the middle of conflict, all that stuff goes out the window. Like, you're not aware at all unless you've done the work. Usually you don't realize that in one area you might be less immature or less mature than your partner, and vice versa. So having awareness in itself just opens up such a big opportunity to change the dynamic in your
Mhm.
relationship. So, I was thinking about how when you find your person and then you start making all these plans to be together, or you're getting to know each other, and the basic questions like, are you a Christian? And, how do you want to raise kids? Do you want to have kids? But nobody really looks at how self-aware you are. Like, it's like, unless,
Right,
you're like, have you been to therapy? That kind of thing, maybe. But I don't think we have a good assessment of it
right.
at all until we're in the marriage, or we're in the relationship pretty deep, and then it just
So
shows up.
so I think our family notices stuff. Um,
Mm.
like there's people I know whose, kids have gotten engaged and it hasn't worked out. And part of, and I can't remember, I think it was Dr. Kevin Lehman, but some of his suggestions around how to do relationship and get married, is this person my person, is, date for 2 years. And then on top of that, ask your family what they think and listen,
Mm.
right?
That's
And so in the cases where, and, I'm 57, so my
good.
kids are all gone. I got a lot of friends in the empty nest department with grandkids, that kind of thing. And so, these conversations come up, the topic comes up of who's kids engaged and then the engagement doesn't work out, and or who's engaged and what do they think of the potential future spouse, right? And it's really interesting because the family will see immature
Mhm.
behavior, and then it's really interesting to see how that all plays out. But it's a great piece of advice. And that's what I asked all my kids is that, you want to date that person for 2 years, and then you want to expose your family and your friends to this person in multiple circumstances so you can see who they actually really are as much as possible and get the opinions and feedback from others, because you're drunk on I can breed with you hormones. You can't trust that. you know and in the cases where people listen, there's actual really positive outcomes to that usually. Sometimes engagements get cut off, called off. And I know somebody that I'm thinking of right now who did not listen
Mm.
and married that person anyway, and now they want out of the marriage because the hormones wear off.
Right.
So to your point, we don't have a test anybody can take, but boy, we have resources that we need to tap into, that provide some wisdom where we're just drunk on hormones and we need that, or at least the
Definitely.
kids do. I'm too old for that now.
Well, this can apply in new environments as well, right? You
Mhm.
start a new job,
Yep.
or, I don't know, ministry as well. I mean, there's all sorts of ways we can apply this where can kind of, and I think that actually is part of a lot of job interview processes where they kind of just let you talk to different people, and, you just kind of see what other people think about that person in different scenarios. And so there's a little bit of awareness, I think, around that. But
Yep.
okay, so let's get into the stages. Dr. Keegan says that stage 1 and 2, because there's 5 stages, actually 6 stages,
Yeah.
but we're only going to talk about the first 5, because stage 6 is like
Well, Jesus.
another stratosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're so mature that you're nearly Christ. Like that's a thing. Oh,
Yeah, so most of us don't get to stage 6, but we can talk about the first 5. And stages 1 and 2 is called the egocentric self. So he describes this stage as essentially like you're a toddler. So you're all about yourself. You care about what you want, you need in the situation. There's a lot of I guess just thinking around your own world. So you're
mhm.
not really aware of others and their needs. You're not really able to care for others. And surprisingly, there's 15% of adults that do not move past this stage.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about that? And I don't even know where to start with how that how to manage that in an adult relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think this shows up as selfishness, the personality characteristic that needs some development there. We all have selfish spaces where we're toddlers. And I
Mm,
always said that raising teenagers was like raising toddlers with big, big problems and dire consequences for some of their actions, but they're really emotionally in some spaces the same because they want what they want when they want it. And they don't they don't see you. They don't, like, they come into a room and they just start talking as if you've been sitting there waiting for their presence to coexist with you in the realm that you're in. Like you've just been, I'm waiting for you to come and speak aloud because I know you're like, nobody does that. But people in this space, children,
mhm,
that's what they do.
mhm.
They just start talking and they just, whatever's inside comes out. And then on top of that, like you can say no to somebody, like you cannot pick the snake up and they're like, no, you don't love me. It's like, wow, that's the level of drama around this. Like they have zero emotional control, that next to nothing in terms of like they're just all very selfishly motivated. And you end up sometimes people like, what is it? 15% of adults don't transition out of this stage. So that's the clinical definition of narcissism, right? So you get an adult that's everything in my world is all about me. CEOs, by the way, of large corporations fit into this category. A lot of CEOs are narcissists, and you have to be that way because you eat, sleep, and breathe, climbing to the top, all about you, your promotions, your structure, like that. Um, and what's interesting is when you're interacting with that, like when you're married to that, it's really challenging
Yeah.
because the order of priorities for the CEO and their spouse or kids are totally different. When you're, and it's the same thing with kids, and we look at this as 18 and under, you're a child. You're not capable of taking care of yourself, really, not very well, like at all, barely. Like how many times have we reminded a teenager to brush their teeth? Because you can smell it across the room. Like, when's the last time you had a shower? There, there's adults that are like this with their social skills and with the way that they deal with projects or what they're about in that moment is the thing that exists. They're not present to be aware that there's other people there. To your point, the awareness piece is just totally missing. So it's hard to be in relationship with them. So but we are, and so we
Mhm.
tell the truth and we're patient.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, so yeah, once you have that awareness, um, you have to now make the decision of dealing with that person in a
Mhm.
different manner than you would somebody in a different stage. And
Yes.
and and that is helpful because if you try to deal with someone assuming they're at a higher stage level, then you're going to end up frustrated because, like, to your point, there's expectations that are
Yeah.
just not going to be met
Yeah,
over and over again.
exactly. So if you show up in that relationship looking for something, if you show up needy, you're going to be disappointed if you're dealing with somebody that's stage 1 and 2 or
Mhm.
even 3 because you're having an expectation of somebody who's not mature enough to really even know you exist out. They don't have that awareness.
Right.
That's not their fault. And you
Right.
can help create that, through boundaries, consequences, telling the truth, being patient, giving them opportunities to succeed, pointing things out when they do it well. Like you've got to be all in on that if this is your person. If you gave birth to that, like same thing.
Mhm.
Um, and everybody, it's just grace and hanging in there, hanging in the relationship. A lot of, I just don't understand how Christians can be estranged from family members, but they do it. And I think they do it because they don't have the maturity to work it out, to figure it
Yes.
out.
Yes. It's like it's almost like they, like you said, they don't have it, even if they wanted to have it, or even if they think they have it,
Mhm.
and having awareness around it's not always intentional. It's
Right.
it's just there's no capacity there
Mhm.
that's been developed.
Exactly.
I think is just a game changer,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. You have to have that acceptance and just a brutal acceptance of reality. If this is what you're dealing with, if
Mhm,
you want them to be different than they are, you're going to be disappointed.
mhm,
Can you help in that space? Absolutely. And
mhm.
if you're married to that, you should be. And you should also be humble enough to recognize that you probably have some stuff going on there too, because none of us are fully arrived this side of heaven. None of us. And how dare we sit in a judgment seat? Like, no, no, no.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next stage is stage 3, and Dr. Keegan calls this the socialized self. And this is where you typically are defined by roles that you have in life. You follow rules, so there is some growth there. You know how to show up in social settings. You're influenced by others, and then also you can kind of care for yourself a little better, maybe not so much others yet, but you're able to at least have some self-awareness around how to do things differently than others. And about 60%, he says, of the population fall into this category, which seems to be more like young adult
Hmm.
age group, where you're not yet middle age, quote unquote, but you're sort of able to function.
Right. And
So,
there's a lot of our society that's this is just where they live.
mm,
And we see the downside of this when they hit been married for 25, 27 years and they become empty nesters and their role as parent is now gone and they
mhm.
don't know who they are anymore. I see this with homeschoolers quite a bit. And, they home educate and the last kid graduates high school and then they're like, oh, wow, I've spent 2 decades homeschooling kids or 15 years or whatever it is. And they don't know who they are anymore. And they actually have kind of a life crisis in that because their identity is based off of the role that they fulfilled. Or you'll see people that have a car accident and now they can't do the thing that they could do before. Um, who are you if you can't, um, you know, do the physical things
Mhm,
that you could do before? Are you less of a person? It's like, well, no, your identity needs to mature out of I'm my role, I'm my job.
mhm,
And you see that's with people that retire because they've been their career, right?
right.
And oh, so I'm not parenting. And God's so gracious, like he gives us all these opportunities to learn that this ends, you know,
Yeah.
uh, parenting ends, and you get this dry spell usually between parenting and grandparenting. And if you did well enough as a parent, you get to be in relationship with your grandkids, and your kids actually want you around, and you get to create something new there. But in this space, the hard part about this space is that I can take care of me. I'm an adult.
Mhm,
I might be 60 years old, but the only person I can take care of is me. That's the problem with this stage is I'm not going to take care of you. Like I only have enough self-awareness to know what I need still. And I'm identifying with my job. I'm identifying with my community. So that's all nice. Better than being a teenager or a child for sure. But I'm not really aggressively, actively caring for other people. And
mm,
nobody's coming to me asking me for advice or help. Right? I'm
mm,
just I'm an island. I'm able to get along and do well enough and a lot of people stay there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess if you don't have kids, because kids kind of force you to think less of yourself, then it's kinda easy, right? You can just, keep going and not have to worry about anyone else. And the other thing about this stage, I think too, it can appear as though you're able to take care of others because you're
Hmm.
taking care of yourself and you
Yeah.
maybe have been amazing at your job or
Hmm.
whatever. It can appear that, oh, well, this person would be mature enough to handle someone else and caring for someone else. And that really doesn't get determined until they're confronted with that responsibility. And so I think
Oh,
that's one of the things that I
Yeah.
notes.
Well, and it's even worse. Some of the couples I've worked with, um, the, in one situation, I'm thinking of, the wife was extremely upset because, and she was upset at the child who was like 8 years old that did not buy her a birthday card. There's no way for this 8-year-old to get a birthday card for her mom or would even know the date, right?
Mm, mm,
Exactly. Like, so she needed help from another adult, and the spouse was not enough of an adult to facilitate that.
mm,
So the wife went without a birthday celebration like multiple years in a row because, but she was also angry at the child. So it's like, just because we can physically crank out a kid doesn't make us an adult. Right? It doesn't make us a parent.
right.
And I think, some people parenting, you have children and it does mature you. Absolutely. It did for me.
Mm,
Um, but it was a brutal process. The whole losing sleep and sacrificing so that this thing will stay alive, that, like, I was so afraid that I was gonna like do something that was gonna kill it. Don't they know I don't know what I'm doing? I couldn't believe they let me go home from the hospital. That's what, like, and I was 27 or something when I had my first child. That's pretty old to not understand all of that. And it was a brutal pruning of
yeah.
selfishness, but I went through it, and I was like, okay, I just need to, like, part of my role here, part of my job is now serving this
Mm,
infant.
mm-hmm,
And it's a responsibility, and I can keep fighting that responsibility or just accept that this is my lot in life at the moment, and I need
mm,
to embrace that and be the best at it that I can possibly be, make the most of it that I possibly can. I don't know what that looks like. Where's the been there, done that moms, right? And so having that awareness, but a lot of people stay stuck in resisting
yeah.
reality.
Right. Talk
Ugh.
about that a little bit, because I was just thinking that that can keep people stuck if
Mm-hmm.
they do not want to grow, essentially. They just want to remain in their stage, in their happy
Mm-hmm.
little stage. Then what do you do? I mean, you might be married to that too, and you
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
right?
So if you're the person resisting reality, you need to level up. So if you don't like your life, you need to take responsibility for it and do something about it. And it's likely that the things that are out there that you would find to do would not be them, because
Mm,
there's not a lot of, like, it's a narrow road. We think we've found it at Greater Impact, and I know that I've helped a lot of couples. It's just miraculous work that the Lord has placed in front of me. I saw him do it in my own marriage. I work with people that everybody else has thrown away in terms of, we can't help you. We were those people.
yeah.
And yeah, so I know what God can do. My God's enormous.
Hmm.
But it all starts with taking responsibility and choosing that. And then you've got to choose to accept the reality of who you are in that moment. Hmm.
Hmm.
So that means, okay, I have some immaturities here. I don't like it. I don't like anything. Well, what am I going to do about that? Am I going to be a victim of my circumstances, or am I going to lead myself through this, following Christ? And then looking at the other person, where are they at? You
Hmm.
know, because
Hmm.
just simply expecting them to take care of you when you're in a space where you need it, like, that's not usually how men work. They need you to ask, because they don't want to communicate to you, I don't think you can handle this. So dealing with reality means observing, self-aware style, both people involved,
Right.
and choosing to take responsibility. Otherwise, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. And also not taking it personally. Again,
Hmm.
just like with the other stage, it's understanding this is where this person is, this is where I am, and all I can really control is me.
Hmm.
So, it's on both sides. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to stage 5. Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip a stage? Stage
4. Yeah.
4.
Yeah. I like stage 4.
Yeah, stage 4. So this is where 25% of adults sort of live, and this is where we transition to adulthood. So this is where we start to form our identity. We know who we are. We're able to have empathy with others and their opinions. We can be authentic and take responsibility. So this is kind of where the shift happens from, being influenced and selfish to now sort of growing up a little bit. So can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about stage 4?
Yeah, this is the first place where self-awareness actually occurs. And
Mm,
it's a cool place. Um, and we have enough sense of identity that we maintain our sense of self when we're interacting with other people, so much so that we can actually listen to a different opinion and not take it personally and not interrupt and argue. One of the most common communication patterns with people is they hear something they don't agree with and they just boom, start shooting their mouth off. And that doesn't happen in this stage. There's an awareness and there's enough healing that's occurred to where you're actually a parent. You can listen to your crazy teenager or your crazy spouse, whoever it is crazy in the moment, and you're not going to be influenced in your identity by what they're saying. They might want a tattoo and or something else, right? Like in our culture, it could be just about anything, honestly.
yeah,
I'm really a boy. Oh, tell me more about that, without
right.
feeling threatened by it. So you can actually listen to that. And I wish more people were in this place, but we have stage 3 and stage 1 and 2 people raising people, and that's why we have chaos at the level we do. We babied everybody, and that's why good times cause bad times eventually, right? Good times
Mm,
cause weak men cause bad times cause good men. So yeah, I
mm,
don't know exactly where we're at. That's just a internet meme that's out there, but it's a thing.
mm,
Um, the coolest part about this stage is that you can actually take care of somebody else. It's like
mm,
parenting that's authentic, where you have legitimate concern. And it's not just parenting, I have a friend who's in need, and yes, you can come stay with me for 2 weeks. Absolutely. Or I have a friend that, is having a hard time, and I'm right there with her in that. And, or my spouse is struggling in his work, and it's like, okay, cool. How can I love you in this? I want to show up in a way that's useful to you. So you care about others, you help, and you have zero self wrapped up in any of that. So this is where self-awareness causes the people pleasing to come to an end because
mm.
you're not doing the interacting and helping and loving and taking care of to gain. You're doing it because you actually care. There's a huge difference. You're not trying to purchase anything for yourself. It's a big deal.
And it sounds like there has had to have been some major growth between stage 3 and stage 4, meaning like maybe some boundaries had to be put in place. Maybe
Mhm,
life happened to
mhm,
where you had to really grow and draw lines and differentiate from people so you show up different.
mhm.
That's kind of what I'm envisioning is like, okay, so something happened where this person came in to understand who they are
Yeah,
apart from the people they love, apart from their roles that they play, apart from who society says they should be. Something happened there
yeah,
where they chose to or were forced to grow up.
yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's really common. I'd love to say that, oh, we just intentionally go after these stages. Like, no, we don't. We're too selfish. To your point, something has to happen. We lose a job, we lose a spouse, we lose a child. Like something happens and we have to level up
Mhm.
because if we don't, the consequences of not leveling up are worse. And that honestly for me, that was one of the big things that I grew from in my marriage struggles was if I don't change, this isn't going to, and I'm gonna lose everything. I'm gonna lose him, I'm gonna lose the family, the way that, like, oh, surely God can make something beautiful out of this. And then he did. And it's not over yet and it's not perfect, but boy, is it better. I'm so grateful. That's what's out there when we choose to keep moving through this. And, wisdom is learning from other people's mistakes
Mhm.
instead of having to do that thing yourself. That's what stage 1 and 2 people do, you know. Oh, well, and 3 and 4 sometimes too. But we take responsibility and move forward. It's cool.
And, I'm wondering, one question I have is, do you sort of go up and down between stages? Like, is
Yes.
thing where like you might be at stage 3 or 4 one day, and then you drop all the way down to stage one,
Well,
and
I think it's moment to moment,
yeah.
the interactions that you're having, whether or not you've had healing in a space, are you triggered? Are you an adult in this space at all? Um, and the goal is to be, stage 5, stage 6, where you are solid in your identity to the point that you can collaborate, you don't care who gets credit, you interact with people and you value exact what they bring to the table. There's a no losers policy. You don't want to see them suffer. You want them to have a win even when you disagree. Like
Mhm.
there's that level of mature thinking, and people are coming to you asking you for advice. That's elder level, right? that's
Mhm.
that's beyond grandparent. Like it's you could keep your own kids alive as a parent. You made it to adulthood, then you could keep somebody else alive, and then there's wisdom in your grandparenting. But elder is this last couple of stages where you're really, as a leader, incredible. And not a lot of people make it to that, but we know it when we see it,
Yes.
and we're attracted to it. And
Yes.
I love that sometimes I have moments where I like, oh, I did that. And then I have pride, and then I'm down at, stage 1 or 2, and I'm egocentric again. So, because, if I was at 6, I wouldn't have noticed. It'd be just me being, right?
Oh, that's what stage 6 is. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, you just are. And yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm not there yet, but it's fun to talk about. It's fun to shoot for sure. And when couples, like when I launched this info in our marriage intensive, there was just dead silence. I'm like, so what's going on? And the couples, like everybody was like, well, I thought I was further up the ladder, man. Like, oh man, oh gosh, I have a lot of growth to do here. I was like, yeah, me too. Let's do it.
Yeah, that was exactly my thought at the conference. I was like, oh,
Yeah, sorry about that.
that explains a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, thankfully, God is patient with us. And until we go to be with Him, we'll be working on it. And hopefully, we'll get to stage 5 or 6. That's the goal. So, thanks for kind of summarizing stage 5 for us, because basically, that's what an elder is. It's the integral self, where you are mentoring, you're leading others. You don't take things personally. You're able to share authority even if you have the authority, and you see a bigger purpose in all of it. So only 1% of the population make it here, but 14% are on their way. So
Woo.
until we get to glory, we are going to be working on these stages with the help of God and people who love us. So all right, so Nina, where can people find more about this information?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work around this actually in the marriage intensive. And so if you and your spouse have been, beating your head against a wall trying to make your marriage better for a while, and you don't know what to do, or maybe you've been to counseling and it made everything worse, and I'm sorry, but that's a common experience. Give us a call. There's, if you get on the website and you take that marriage assessment, you can reach out to us through that, and then we'll be able to connect you and let you know if it's right for you or not. We have an excellent success rating with it. Over 95% of the couples that have been through it are still applying what they were working on, and their marriages are better. So that's cool. And I actually contacted one of them about a year and a half ago just to see if they needed a tune-up or something, because I was going to run another one. And the response I got was, oh, no, we're good. Let me send you my vacation pictures. And then I get all these photos in my phone about, their trip to the beach and the hiking and all this stuff. And they looked so happy. I was like, wow, praise you, Lord. And they spent 6 months with us, and God did the work, and they kept the habits. And so that's really an incredible testimony, but that is what happens. That's what's possible. And we screen people. If we don't think we can help you, we're real honest about that. But go to the website, greaterimpact.org, grab that marriage assessment, and then yeah, reach out. We'll talk to you about it and see if, it might be something that would work for you.
All right. Well, there you have it. Thanks for joining us today. Check out the next episode on our channel, and we will see you next time.